Hello, Moto.
Hello, you bring my donuts?
No.
What you mean, no donuts? I don't know about you guys, but the Motorola ringtone is one of my all-time favorite. And yes, you can still dramatically hang up on people in 2023 with the new Razr Plus folding phone. If you're new here, I'm Tom Bobo. I make daily phone reviews to document every aspect of owning a particular phone. I've been using the Moto Razr for the last 4 days now, and I'm really enjoying it. It's a great blend between old and new with the classic flip phone design and a modern foldable technology. This year, the outer display is more useful than the previous Razr model. To be honest, I like the idea of it and actually using it. Similar to the S Pen with Samsung, I always like to have the S Pen, although I rarely ever use it. So far with the outer display, it does have a bigger screen, and one thing I've been using it most for is just recording my videos. I can see a preview of myself while using the main camera, and that is a huge benefit because if you just use the regular selfie camera, the quality is not as good as the main camera. Motorola camera is not that great in general, but I pretty much already knew that going into this phone. I'm using it more for the cool factor and just the nostalgia. And on the front screen, you basically have 6 main apps that you can really choose from. I think it's fine. I rarely ever touch it in general. I have YouTube out here, maybe Snapchat, Google Maps, messages, half of these are default. So with the bigger screen, you can scroll around, have some light usage where you want to use your phone, you gotta open up for the full functionality. And I do like the preview screen whenever I'm recording a video, especially if I'm doing a vlog style. The inner display is large and vibrant. Yes, the crease is still there. Doesn't really bother me though. But then again, occasionally when I open my phone, it does feel like the middle part is kind of bulging out towards me. And sometimes it may feel like it is not completely open flat. Not sure if that's just me, but then I turn the phone to the side and it is flat, but maybe it's gonna straighten it up a little bit. So this is a minor design flaw there. It doesn't bother me too much, but it is something I do notice occasionally. The phone itself is pretty wide and skinny. Typing in one hand is somewhat challenging. It requires you to have a long thumb. Every time I'm typing, once hit the enter button or the search button all the way on the other side, I feel like I have to stretch all the way over and can just barely touch the enter button. So it is almost a one-handed phone, but not quite, due to the fact that it is a little wide and very long as well. So when I'm customizing my home screen, I tend to have the apps that I use the most in the first 4 or 5 rows, because anything beyond that, I would need to start tilting my phone and do some hand gymnastics, start shifting my fingers up and down in order to reach all the way on the top of the screen. So it's just something to keep in mind when you are customizing your own screen. Fingerprint sensor works fine. Although I previously came to Google Pixel 7a, I'm so used to just pressing the fingerprint sensor in the bottom of the screen whenever I'm with my phone. And I still have a habit of touching that. Now I have to remember to shift my finger all the way up and then touch the fingerprint sensor on the power button, which is also the fingerprint sensor. So you have to do a little bit of shifting there. And in order to avoid that while your phone is already closed, you might as well just unlock it from there. So when you open it, you don't need to shift your hand up and down in order to try to unlock it again. But you have face unlock enable. Sometimes you can skip that step, but it doesn't always activate. I don't know, I feel like with all phones, face unlock is a little bit finicky depending on how you hold it. In this particular case, since it's a folding phone, occasionally your hand might be blocking the sensor depending on how you're holding the phone. There's just little things to consider whenever you do unlock it. Just another step to think about how you want to unlock it, whether you want to unlock it while it's already closed and then open it, or open it and then unlock it. The phone itself is super fast and snappy despite the 1-year-old chip. To be honest, any flagship Snapdragon chip over the last 3 years will work this fine. I have my Galaxy S20 and it is still buttery smooth. The trend is pretty much the same here with the Snapdragon 8 Gen 1. Still pretty fast, efficient. I can launch 1 million apps at once. I would argue that it is more efficient than the Google Pixel 7a. When I use the Pixel 7a, you can do little things, especially if it's hot outside. The phone's gonna overheat, the processor gets low. You launch multiple apps at once, the phone does get really hot and it will occasionally shut down. With the Moto Razr Plus, I can still do the same thing, launch a bunch of apps at once. Everything will run just fine. It may get a little warm, but it doesn't impact performance or anything like that, and it doesn't slow down any of the performance in the background either. And battery life is actually a fresh air coming from the Google Pixel 7a. I'm a pretty heavy user, and during my first few days, I've been using the camera a lot, just like I am right now. I'm using these to record my daily vlogs. In the morning, I record at least a 10-minute video clip, if not more, maybe 10 to 15 minutes, and then I edit it. And throughout the day, whenever I see cool things, I do little recording here and there, snap some pictures. I would consider that heavy usage, since most people don't really use the camera like that every day. And I've been getting consistently 7 to 9 hours under heavy usage. And on a busy Saturday morning when I'm running around doing chores, playing some sports, I'm not always on my phone all the time. So on day 4, I woke up at 6:30 a.m. and by 9:30 p.m. I still have 15% left. So roughly 15 hours of battery life there. And throughout the day when I'm driving around, I do have the cable just plugged in briefly. I know it does have wireless charging, but does it work with the one I currently have? Pretty sure if I buy a specific one, I can get it to work, but I don't think it's worth it just for the 5-watt fast charging. So I just plug in the cable when I'm driving, and it works for me. So even when I'm driving, I still get a few buck there. So if you want to subtract another hour or so, I think 14, 15 hours is pretty solid for an all-day battery life phone. And when I had the Google Pixel 7a under light usage, I was getting 7 to 8 hours. I was getting 7 to 8 hours towards the end. And with heavy camera usage, I would only get about 4 hours. And when I'm driving around using music, GPS, and everything on, even with the cable plugged in, I might be lucky if I gain a percent or two while I'm driving. And in my last video, I complained about not being able to keep my always on display, actually always on. So right now, the way that Motorola has it set up, you can view it whenever you tap on the phone or you lift it up and you can see it. But me personally, I just prefer to always have the clock when I'm glancing at it. I don't want to have to touch it, raise it, anything like that. And by default, you cannot find it anywhere in the settings. I tried looking everywhere for it. I did a Google search, and it's just not there. So I have to resort to downloading this. I just went into the Google Play Store, just search for always on display, look for the one with the highest ratings and a lot of downloads. So go ahead and install that. It's easy setup, just allow everything and pick whatever clock you want. And then once you set it, it's just literally always on, just the way I want it. I'm curious to see how this is going to impact the battery life. So far, I had it on for a couple hours. I think it's turning pretty quickly. But I'll keep you updated by the end of the day, see how long it's gonna last. I mean, by default, Motorola doesn't give you that option, so I assume they don't want you to keep it always on for a reason. In terms of storage, you're getting a 256GB model with this phone, and it is a default standard. I think a lot of phones are probably gonna do this going forward. Video files are getting larger. Every phone's gonna have 4K and 8K capability soon, so starting at 120GB is a little light. And I'm glad that for a $1,000 phone, they did not cheap out on the storage. So glad to see the 256 on board there. Download speed is surprisingly very fast on this phone. I was on 5G walking around Costco with downloading a 5GB file, and it took me less than a minute to download it off a random website. It's just for that one particular instance, but I was just pretty amazed on how fast 5G was on this particular phone. And out of curiosity, I ran a speed test, and I was only getting about 300 megabytes per second, so I have no idea how the math and whatever works in the background. All I knew is I downloaded a 5K file in less than a minute. I don't always do a lot of file downloading, but I was surprised there. Another minor complaint I have with this phone is it doesn't really tell you how long it's going to take for your phone to charge. Whenever I use Samsung phone or Google Pixel phone, I plug it in, it'll tell me my phone will charge fully in an hour and a half. And on the Razr Plus, it doesn't tell you anything. And worst of all, I tried 2 different charging bricks, the OnePlus 120-watt charging brick and my laptop charger. And those took forever to charge, and if I had known that in advance, like they told me, I would have used a different charger. So apparently it doesn't like those 2 options. And I recently switched over to the Samsung 45-watt fast charging brick, and this one seems to work better. It took about an hour, 20 minutes to 30 minutes to fully charge, which is what I was expecting. But with all the other charging brick I was using, when I plug in, it does say turbo charging, and you really have to dig into the settings and go into the battery to be able to see how long it's going to take to fully charge your phone. And it doesn't even show you immediately either. When you first plug it in, your phone's at 15 or 20%, it just says rapid charging, but doesn't tell you how long. And then after you leave it plugged in for half an hour or so and you go back, I noticed at that point it's going to tell you, oh, your phone's going to fully charge in another 40, 50 minutes. Just a minor nuisance. I don't like having to dig around to see how long my phone's going to fully charge, and I don't know why I had to wait a little bit to see that information instead of seeing it right away. So overall, the Motorola Razr Plus is a great phone. It's not perfect. The camera could be better. That works for me when recording videos, but I noticed when I was going for a brief walk, just doing some zooming and recording, it goes into 8x video recording. and the quality look absolutely terrible. So if you like to do a lot of zooming, avoid doing that. And even like the picture, you zoom in at 6x or 8x, take a picture of some ducks here, they look absolutely terrible. But in general, if you just stick with the main cameras, the 1x, the wide angle camera, and the macro, those are pretty decent. Just don't do any of the digital zooming and going in and out beyond the standard resetting that you see when you first launch the camera. So there's no limitation there. But like I mentioned before, if you're getting a Razr Plus, you are not getting it for the camera. The price is a little bit steep, but I think it is slowly going down. Initially, when the split-view smartphone was first released a few years ago, I believe they were $1,200 or $1,400 bucks. But now it is $1,000, and there's a better version than it is 2 years ago. And they do have an $800 variant coming later this year. I know they're gonna get rid of the front display and some sacrifice is gonna be made, but prices is slowly coming down and soon it's gonna be affordable for more people. On the other hand, we got Apple selling their VR headsets for $3,500. So new technology is always expensive and everything takes time before it slowly become more affordable to most people. However, if you're looking for a unique, stylish phone, I think the Razr Plus is a good option. I definitely got some head turning, especially from my iPhone user. They always ask to see the phone, touch it. They will never admit that they want it, and they will say it's not for them. But you know they're definitely interested, and deep down, if Apple were to sell a folding phone, they would be the first in line to get it. And you know, that in itself is just enough for me. So with the Razr Plus, you're paying the high price tag to be one of the first to use folding phones. They've been around for a few years now. Folding smartphones, actually. Folding phone been around for many years. But you just pay to be one of the first to use it. Paying for the nostalgia, the cool factor, and the fact that you can hang up on people just by slamming your phone shut. Can't really do that on a lot of modern phones these days. And with $1,000, you can get many other options that is much safer, boring, great camera, best specs that money you can buy. With the Razr Plus, this is not that. You're paying for something unique and fun. It is a bit expensive, but I think it's worth it. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe for more daily contents like these. Let me know what your thoughts, questions, what your experience has been so far with the Moto Razr Plus. Let me know if there's anything else in particular you want to learn, and I'll be sure to answer them in the comments below. Please check out day 3 with the Motorola Razr Plus if you haven't already, and see you guys over there.